What's up guys, CJ here, and welcome back to another all-new Hybrid Network video, this time our review for Jessica Jones Season 2. And right from the top, fair warning, this is an unscripted review. I've actually got some notes about things that I want to mention, things that I want to talk about, but this is the first video in a long time where I'm just going completely sans script. So who knows what's going to come out of my mouth, because I've been up for 24-ish hours now, and I've spent the last 13 of them binge-watching this season. You may have been surprised that it's already out because, of course, Netflix released it a day early on Thursday to line up with International Women's Day, something that I thought was really cool, but I didn't discover until, the afternoon of Thursday, so I didn't start watching it until that evening. But honestly, after 13 episodes, I feel like I got a pretty good grasp on what's going on. This is a spoiler-free review, also, another programming note, so we are not going to be diving into the spoilers and stuff like that. We are going to have a couple videos throughout the day going over the ending explained if you're a little confused. There are some little teasers and Easter eggs. We might do another video breaking those down. But this video, of course, is a review for the season as a whole. Let's just dive into a quick plot synopsis. No spoilers, like I said. I guess just briefly, this season is all about Jessica's past. It's really more about finding out who she is, and it's one of those things where I feel like, we got Daredevil's origin in his first season, we got Luke Cage's origin in his first season, Iron Fist's origin, same story, Punisher, same way, but we haven't really gotten to know Jessica Jones, and it's one of those things that you don't realize until you're sitting there watching the show, that you really have no idea what her origins are. You have this one brief accident that gets explained, but there's no background to it in the first season, and this season, thankfully, fixes that question. This literally dives into her origins. You learn how she got her powers, and it's about confronting those demons, but it's really about all of the characters in the show confronting their demons. And first and foremost, we're diving into the pros a little early here, but everybody has something to do this season. All of the main characters. Jessica Jones obviously has a huge thing. Kilgrave does reappear. Jerry Hogarth has a massive storyline. So does Trish Walker, and of course even Malcolm, even everybody's favorite, ex-junkie, recovering drug addict neighbor. He's got a big old storyline as well. So confronting demons, huge thing for all characters. Specifically, lots of themes in play here. The importance of family, addiction, whether it be to alcohol, to drugs, that's a huge thing as well. Death is a big one, and I think the biggest theme this season that gets explored is what it means to be a hero, and obviously that's something that Jessica Jones has been struggling with. I think at the end of Season 1 she was like, whatever, I'm not really a hero, I'm a person with powers that sometimes is going to save people. Obviously Defenders kind of was working, another step forward in the right direction, and this season really takes a big step forward, but it's a tough step. It's not one that doesn't have consequences and doesn't come without cost, but all of the players are involved in major and surprising ways this season. So if you were worried about storylines not having anything to do, not a big fear. Into some pros and cons. Pros, Kristen Ritter is amazing, and it's one of those things where I was on the fence when they cast her. She was obviously not the person that I would have chosen, but Season 1, she blew me away there. I was a little, I thought Defenders was a little bit of a step back. I kind of felt like she was a little bit of an odd character out, if that makes sense. But this season just returned to form. She's fantastic in this season. I really loved what she did with the character, and I feel like not a lot of actors and actresses out there would have pulled off the complex stuff that they were delving into this season as well as she did. So props to her, hats off to her. She really shined. She carried a lot of the load for the show. The villain, who has not been revealed, is actually really, really intriguing. That's directly from my notes here, if it sounded like I was reading off a script. I noticed, because I was like, maybe we should do a video before the season comes out about who the villain is, because that's a big question that everyone has. And I noticed nobody was talking about who the villain was. I read through 5 or 6 reviews, and nobody was mentioning the villain. They would mention it very vaguely, the villain is more of a physical threat, yada yada yada, but they wouldn't go into any details. And that's because I think Netflix told them not to mention who the villain is, so I'm not going to, because it is a big twist. It is a big old twist that I don't think you were going to see coming, because it absolutely shocked me, turns the season upside down, and it absolutely changes the season from the revelation. It is a physical threat, I will say that. It's a physical threat this time around. And I would say maybe not quite as good as Kilgrave, but honestly a little more intriguing to me, if that makes sense. I think nobody's going to top David Tennant, and I feel like this season does have a big old David Tennant-sized hole But this villain is very intriguing in a very different way. And speaking of Kilgrave, his inclusion in the season is small, but I think the way he's used is really cool and really interesting, and I really loved what they did with that. Speaking of other characters, Hogarth, Jerry Hogarth's storyline this season was one of my favorites. I mean, her character is set up against something, without giving too much away, she's set up against something that she really can't overcome, and that just kills her. It eats her up, and it just breaks her character. And there are a lot of interesting twists and turns, and a really great payoff. And, the one thing I'll say about all of the character side stories is that they are woven back into the main story very well. That's something that a lot of the Netflix shows have struggled to do at times, but this season really, I think, did it the best that any Netflix season has ever done it. All of the players are involved, everything is connected to each other. It was really, really well done. And to a lesser extent, Trish Walker returns in a really big way. You will hate her mother just as much as you did in Season 1. But her storyline was also, I would say, just as compelling as any other storyline this season, which kind of surprised me, because I didn't love the character after Season 1. I think this season really did a lot more of selling that character to the audience. She deals with a lot of those themes that I mentioned at the beginning, really from addiction to the importance of family to what it means to be a hero. All of these things are things that she struggles with, and her story arc builds very naturally out of where her character was in season 1. And I will say this, no spoilers here, but they are building to something for her. And if you know who she is from the comics, then you know what they're building to. There are a ton of puns, tons of references where if you know what they're talking about, it's like a little wink wink, nudge nudge. You get what they're going for. No spoilers if you don't know, just ignore that. Speaking of that, there are a lot of great comic book callbacks that I was not expecting. There's the Wizard, for instance, a very, very campy Z-list character, makes an appearance. He's hilarious. It's a really weird part of the show. There's also a reference to the Raft from Captain America Civil War that gets thrown around like 4 or 5 times. So if you were wondering, the Netflix shows still think they're part of the MCU. Overall, Jessica Jones just is continuing to be basically the most nuanced and complex of all the Marvel shows. Complex is not a word, but it's the deepest, I feel like. I mean, I love Daredevil. Daredevil's probably still my favorite. I loved Luke Cage. I really loved The Punisher, if you watched our review for that. But Jessica Jones just does the best job of really diving into the characters and handling really complex subject matter, really thought-provoking, deep stuff, and weaving that into a really compelling superhero tale. And the ending is abrupt, but it is also really, really well done for a lot of reasons, and it takes the show to a bunch of different places for next season. On to the cons. I have less than pros, obviously, so we're going to move through this really quick. The pacing in this show is a little wonky, but it's not for the reason that a lot of other Netflix shows have struggled with, because a lot of other Netflix shows really struggle with the fact that it's 13 episodes. You sometimes come off feeling like it would have been better as like an 8 or 10 episode season. I feel the same way about this show. I feel like they could have compressed stuff, but looking at where all the storylines went, I wouldn't have cut any of those out. And there is no sag. There's no like, okay, we're going somewhere else now for a few episodes. There's one episode that really is heavy flashbacks, but other than that, and that relates to the story, there's nothing like, hey, Luke Cage and, Claire go to Georgia. There's nothing really that detracts from the show. But I will say, essentially, there is a dramatic turn halfway through the show, and we're dealing with that for the rest of the season. Literally, we are wrestling, going back and forth with the same issues for the rest of the season, for the last 7 episodes or so. And that's a little bit of a head scratcher. It might get a little frustrating at times. Binging wise, it feels a little schizophrenic, because one episode you'll have a character say one thing, and by the next episode they're like, okay, I've been shown the error of my ways, but then 2 episodes later they're right back to where they were in the beginning. There is some dodgy CGI here and there. That's inevitable with these Netflix shows, especially with a character like this who has the powers that Jessica Jones has. So if you were looking for an improvement in CGI, it is not there. When some character decisions just come off very weird, I think for the most part I agreed with where all the storylines went. It felt natural and it related, like I said, back to the main story. But some decisions just happen in really slow motion and over a long period of time, and others just kind of come out of nowhere. They just happen really without explanation. And you'll know what I'm talking about when you watch the show. On the whole, I feel like Jessica Jones Season 2, it might be a step back for some because it doesn't have a commanding performance, in a clear-cut villain like Kilgrave. Daredevil has had the Kingpin, Punisher had, Jigsaw, and they've all of these shows have had like a clear-cut villain. I feel like The Punisher was a little more nuanced than that, but this season just doesn't have that. But it still works to me, and I think if you're looking for that, you might be disappointed. But if you're willing to accept something that you might not have thought about, I feel like you're going to be happy with this. Personally, I feel like the show as a whole, in terms of it being a streamlined narrative, is actually a little more nuanced. I feel like it works a little bit better than Season 1, and I know a lot of people think Jessica Jones Season 1 is the best that Netflix has put out, to date. I would still say Punisher is probably my favorite of the Netflix series, but Jessica Jones Season 1 and now Jessica Jones Season 2 are right up there in the top 3 or 4. They're all fantastic. This works in different ways. It takes a step back in terms of the villain, maybe, but it takes a step forward in other areas. Long story short, if you hated Jessica Jones Season 1, you thought it was too slow, you didn't like Kristen Ritter, yada yada yada, for whatever reason, I feel like you're not going to like this season. I'll say that right now. If you didn't like Season 1, you're not going to like this season. If you liked Season 1, but you only really liked it because of Kilgrave, again, you might not like this season. But if you liked Season 1 for the way that it tackled the character, for the way that it was, what it was dealing with, I feel like you're going to like Season 2 a lot more, if that makes sense. Wrapping up the review, overall, I'll give Jessica Jones Season 2 an 8.5 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it is definitely another step in the right direction for Marvel and Netflix. After Punisher took the first step, I think, in repairing the reputation after Iron Fist and Defenders. But now Jessica Jones takes a big ol' step forward in repairing that brand. And I'll be interested to see what they do with Luke Cage Season 2 and Daredevil Season 3 and Iron Fist Season 2, as they continue to kind of claw their way back. Let me know what you thought. If you've seen the show, if you're watching it, as you guys watch it this weekend, hit me up in the comment section down below and let me know what you thought about Jessica Jones Season 2. I really, really enjoyed it. It's like I said, top 3 or 4 Netflix shows for me. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below, but that's going to do it for me here. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to smash that like if you liked what you saw, subscribe for more great content every single day, and consider turning on your notifications to be alerted every time we upload a new video. For even more content, check out our website at hybridnetworkyt.com or our gaming spinoff at HN Gaming. But if you love HN and want to take your support to the next level, consider donating to us on Patreon as we strive to bring you the best content possible. Signing off, this is CJ, and I'll see you next time.